2015, we took a year to a year and a half to finalize the policy and present it to Cabinet and later to Parliament. So the policy is really a consultative document developed by many stakeholders in a consultative way and informed by well-researched data, especially from the task force report and from our international obligations under the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption and the UN Convention Against Corruption. Those are our key international documents, and they really informed our policy development process, especially the reviews under Untitled undertaken in 2015. One of the gaps that review noted was that Kenya had very good laws, good sectoral policies, but no overarching policy on anti-corruption. And that's why the OAG, working with other stakeholders, made sure that we fill that gap by developing that policy. Those who worked on it will remember that we made sure that it addresses stakeholder engagement. One of the key issues running across the policy is stakeholder engagement and working together, because as we all know, some of the key law enforcement agencies in this sector have independence of operations, but to ensure that we win this fight, they have to work together to coordinate their energies. Just now, a short overview of the policy. What does the policy seek to address? The main objectives of these policies are coordination and synergy of all stakeholders, to generate sufficient political support. Of course, we have that at the top level from the presidency. We know there's a lot of goodwill in fighting corruption, but we want to institutionalize that to ensure that this survives beyond the current regime and many more regimes to come by having it in a policy format. We also propose to strengthen the legal and institutional framework for fighting corruption. This theme also runs throughout the policy. Throughout the implementation of this policy, we will be looking at the laws. Are they sufficient? Are they adequate? If not, we will fill any gaps by working together and addressing those gaps. We also propose to mainstream ethics and integrity in the management of public affairs. We know that if we succeed in this, then we will have less corruption to fight. So this really is one of the focus areas of the policy, and that's why it's called the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption. And we also try to intensify fighting corruption at all levels of government, in national government and devolved systems of government. And to ensure that it's implemented, we will establish an effective monitoring and evaluation framework. How we approach the policy is thematic areas. There are 7 thematic areas in the policy, starting with prevention of corruption. This was very deliberate to start with prevention. There are very heated debates during the preparation of the policy on the placement of the different chapters. And for obvious reasons, we thought we should have prevention first, because if we prevent the occurrence of corrupt events, then we will save resources in the fight. And to do this, we propose to mainstream and institutionalize corruption prevention in all ministries, departments, agencies, and county governments, and to enhance the capacity of public bodies and private sectors to prevent corruption. The strategy in this is to mainstream corruption in all administrative processes and instruments. And I think this health situation has helped us, because one of the strategies is to digitize most of our systems and services to reduce human interface in the delivery of public services. As I look at the other strategies, just to emphasize that in all the thematic areas, we will approach them through looking at first the laws, So there'll be law review just to ensure that the laws we have are adequate. If there are gaps, we fill the gaps. And if we need to enact new laws, we will do so because of the dynamic and changing nature of corruption. We will also look at the administrative processes. This is where I think we'll place more emphasis because we know that those in government, when looking at your work, your everyday work, what to look at are the circulars and the guidelines. What do we have in our offices? Are they adequate? Can they be improved? So all the themes will look at that. We have institutional strengthening. In every theme, we will be looking at the anti-corruption agencies and institutions. Do they have adequate resources? Are they well resourced in terms of human resources and other requirements to effectively discharge their mandate? This policy addresses that, and its implementation will ensure we have efficient and effective institutions. We also plan to look at the private sector. It's a big player in the ethics and anti-corruption sector. We all know that we have the Bribery Act, but that's not enough. We need to rope in the private sector in terms of ethics. What do private sector members do in ethics? How can they enhance ethics? Because they are the suppliers and service providers in government. So if we address that sector, then we are addressing the supply side issue of corruption. Then we have citizen participation. The Constitution emphasizes on this. The citizen must play a key role in governance. And every individual has a role in this policy to play in preventing corruption. So the policy addresses that. Other thematic areas in the policy are public education, training, and awareness. We plan to enhance the public's capacity and engagement in fighting and preventing corruption through public education and awareness. I think we all know that one of the areas where the public can play and will play a role is in terms of budgeting at the national and country level. Once they track our budget from the preparation to implementation, then they will pick up any anomalies and report. So public education and awareness is a key in that. Then we have criminalization, law enforcement, and jurisdiction. Under this thematic area, we will prioritize the enforcement of anti-graft legislation by enhancing both human and financial resources. In this thematic area, we look at all institutions. What is the human resource capacity? What is the requirement? Do we have our key offices, DCI, Eacc, or DPP in all counties? Do we need to move to sub-counties? That's what this policy will look at to ensure that we have these services available to the citizen in all corners of the Republic. And then we have prosecution and of economic crimes. Under this, we look at the state prosecutorial services and we'll seek to enhance them to ensure that there's effective and efficient prosecution of corruption and economic crime cases. To ensure this happens, we will also enhance interagency collaboration and stakeholder collaboration. Of course, we know we have the MAT, and we have seen the results of having the multi-agency team. We will continue enhancing that relationship to ensure that all corrupt activities and economic crimes are addressed. We then have asset recovery. Under this area, the policy proposes the strengthening of the legal and institutional framework for asset tracing and recovery of assets. This is a key component of the policy implementation because we don't just punish corrupt acts, but we must ensure that the corrupt don't gain from their actions by recovering the assets and illicit wealth. Once we address that, then we have international cooperation. Under this sector, we know that corruption is cross-border in nature, and we propose to enhance our mutual legal assistance framework by entering even into more agreements with more countries to ensure we get the necessary assistance and give the necessary assistance in criminal prosecution and asset tracing. Finally, we have leadership and integrity. This is the area that focuses on Chapter 6 of the Constitution. And here the policy focuses on mechanisms for lifestyle audits. So we look at that legal framework. What we have now is not adequate. We all know the issue of declarations. Yes, they provide relevant information, but we can do better. And this policy identifies those gaps and proposes measures to ensure that we enhance the provisions of Chapter 6 of the Constitution by tracing assets and vetting of leaders for political and appointive posts. That's a brief outcome of the policy strategies and what we propose to do. How will we implement that? First of all, we have different stakeholders who will implement the policy. And the stakeholders, just to name a few, most of them are represented here. National government, the different entities, Chapter 15 Commission, who play a key role. They will also play a key role in the implementation of this policy. We have the judiciary, parliament, devolved government, civil society, the private sector, faith-based organizations, development partners, the fourth estate, and academia. Academia, if I may just talk about this, will play a key role because one of the issues in public education is that we plan to take this policy to schools, not just the policy, but of course pick it and put the relevant provisions in school curricula from basic education to colleges to ensure that ethics and anti-corruption is taught to children from an early age. How do we plan to implement this policy? At the back of the policy, we have a comprehensive matrix that identified the strategies, the objectives, and proposes key interventions to ensure that we get the desired outcomes. At the OAG, what we plan to do is we'll be reviewing the policy after every 5 years. But before then, we will have annual reports with all stakeholders, including the citizens, on where we are on the implementation of the policy and what challenges we are facing and how to address them. This will be coordinated by the OAG, but all the stakeholders will participate in the preparation of the reports and implementation of the matrix to ensure that the policy is implemented. After 5 years, we'll take a review to know if the policy has been fully implemented and whether we need to have the second policy and the way forward on that. I think that's a brief on that. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, on behalf of the Attorney General's Office for those remarks. So I believe now we are very, very clear about why we are here, the objectives of today's function. And because it is multi-sectoral day, it includes many of the stakeholders. It is now time to invite the various stakeholders to speak, and we will start with the Office of the Director of Criminal Investigations, popularly known as DCI, Mr. George Kinoti. Please come to address the people.
Archbishop retired Eliud Bakal, the chairperson of Eacc. Eacc commissioners present, Brother Major Retired Mbarak, the CEO, Eacc, Madam Dorcas Oduol, Secretary of Public Prosecution, and Mary Ann Jau, Secretary Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Mr. Stephen Kirogo, Senior, and all my brothers and sisters present here today, good morning. Today, I'm glad to be among those who have been assembled here in this round of the National Policy on Ethics and Corruption. My appreciation first goes to the Attorney General for inviting the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, and we did most sincerely thank the His Office for the great support and defense he has given to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations in our myriad legal challenges. We are here today again talking on the round of corruption. Corruption, today we are talking of COVID pandemic, but this is one of the COVID the country has been experiencing for a long period that most of us can recall. It's a pandemic that has inflicted a complete moral fabric of the country, and that there has been a painful experience to all of us. The President of the Republic of Kenya put in place a coordinated multi-agency team, today called MAT, to be on the forefront to fight this evil. The MAT, among other government agencies, under the chairmanship of the Attorney General, as the key criminal justice system members, namely the police, the Director of Public Prosecution, Eacc, Asset Recovery Agency, FRC, Central Bank, and other who we are assembled together as the key agencies for the purposes of giving Kenyans what is expected of them as far as the war of corruption is concerned. For a period, we have done our best as the agencies responsible in our respective jurisdictions. But the appraisal of how sincere, how honest, and how dedicated we are as far as this war is concerned is out there in the public. In our evaluation in this war, the government has suffered most, and the culprits being the same civil servants who have been given the honor and the responsibility to be custodians of the public resources. But we have turned to be the shepherds who endeavor for a wanton greed what we are supposed to shepherd. I have found out that it has been a culture in the way public resources are managed, that being public, there is no individual being deprived. There is no individual, I, as the person given the responsibility of a public resource, in my area that have been given the responsibility, be it be in the ministry, in the department, various units, operations, but it is Christian in our parents ni mali ya umma, hii ni mali ya serikali. So even if we steal, who are we hurting after all? Ni mali ya serikali. We don't see an individual wincing in pain that what I've labored for, what I've contributed had been pulled together. You are stealing from the same, which means you are stealing from me. The former president of the United States of America, the late President Abraham Lincoln, some 7 years prior to his assassination, reminded his people thus: a democratic state like ours in the Republic of Kenya is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. The resources that now to, mitigate our conscience, because at the back we know what we are doing is wrong, that we say